there's some real concrete stuff that I want to talk to you about. One is the state national thing. Yeah, it's an area where I find it interesting to listen, but I haven't really taken any real world action on what's called the sovereign citizen movement, or what you have called becoming a state national. You've gone down this road pretty far and helped people on this path as well. Give us the context
this
for
is so
how this works and how it can be valuable.
You're a truther and you find out stuff and you wonder, what's the next shoe to drop, right? Well, you find out that the entire political governmental structure is a fraud. The whole thing's a fraud. They're all companies. They're what's called de facto governments. In other words, the county you live in, the city you live in, the county, the state, the police department, the court system, all have a Dun & Bradstreet number. That means they're a company. There's no scenario, right? There's no scenario where a government would have a Dun & Bradstreet number. So they're companies. Okay, now this is very simple to understand. Let's say you go into Walmart as a customer and the manager comes over and says, Greg, here's a broom. Go sweep up in the back. Now you're going to like look behind you like, wait, you talking to me? No, right. So he has no jurisdiction to tell you to do anything. However, if you had come in 2 weeks prior, filled out a job application, and were accepted, now you got your badge on. Now it makes sense if he comes over, right? Tells you go sweep up. So what's happened with all of us is at birth, we've been opted in through presumption to be an employee of GovCo is what I call it. The United States is a corporation. The state of is a corporation. All of the entities that you interact with, the DMV, all of them are companies. So they're getting you to contract with them through trickery and fraud and presumption, and then billing you taxes, fees, improper lane change is a policy. I'll get to that. So what happens is in this movement, it's called the legal education movement, we're discovering the fraud, and fraud vacates or vitiates any contract all the way back to the beginning. If there's fraud in a contract, it's void. So what happens is there is the elites have created an out for you because that way it's your fault if you're a slave. Like the mobsters, if you watch mobster movies, they'll say things like, well, if you're stupid enough to have us rob you, then you deserve it. So might makes right is their mentality. So if you're stupid enough to be enslaved by them, then you deserve it. You deserve to pay taxes, even though there's a revocation option. You can become what's called a legal non-taxpayer. A non-person, non-resident is the exact terminology from the IRS code. Then you can zero out because your money that you're making is not part of a trade or business. The definition of that is if you are a government official. So do you work for the government, Greg? Then the money that you make is not part of a trade or business.
No.
Therefore, it's not taxable. So they fool us with word salads and fake meanings, and they tie us up with all these things that we contract with, and then they enslave us. So there's 2 civil designations. One is 8 U.S.C. 1401, the definition of a U.S. citizen, a person born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. They tell you you're a slave. And United States means, what does United States mean? It means the 10 square mile area in the District of Columbia. So they're presuming you live there. Do you live there? No. And so 8 USC 1101A21, however, is a second designation for a U.S. citizen. Definition of American state national, a person owing permanent allegiance to a state. So you can be a U.S. citizen, but you are now shifting from the de facto corporate 14th Amendment corporate slave class citizen over to a republic, the United States of America, upper and lower case. So there's two of everything. There's the post office and there's the United States Postal Service. There's the IRS and there's the Internal Revenue Service. There's the United States of America and there's United States, all caps. Okay, there's even two of you. I have here in my previously nicotine-stained hands a document from the trademark office. It took me a year to get this. So my all caps name is now trademark. Now, you don't have to be a state national to do this. And actually, I laid out the process for it. It's on my website, wakeuporelse.com. Click the state national tab and just scroll down till you see trademarking your name. And I laid out the whole process. Okay, so what this means now is this is not me. John Kirwin in all caps is not me. I don't spell my name, and it's a specific designation. It's called a non-de jure name. All corporations have their name in all caps. And so they create this corporate fiction at birth, and then they trick you into standing in for it. Well, now with this, let's say, I'll give you an example. Let's say I run up a credit card, I hit bad times, and I can't pay it, and the credit card goes to default. And now the debt collector comes after me, and they will send you a presentment in the all caps name. Because look at your license, your credit cards, your bills, they're all in the all caps name. Okay? Well, what I have here now in any kind of civil action is the ability to say, hey, you're trafficking in a trademark that I own. Do you have written permission to trademark? Use my trademark. No? Well, I'm sending you a cease and desist letter. Now, before you suggest I'm immoral, the whole debt collection process is a fraud. So you can do that once where you find out the fraud, you discover it. You just can't keep doing it. Oh, I'm going to go get another credit card, run it up and not pay. That would be immoral. But the first time, it isn't immoral because you've been defrauded. And when there's fraud, it voids the contract. All right, now where this gets really fun, beyond becoming a legal non-taxpayer, is no longer are you subject to the statutes, codes, and rules of the company. Okay, because is the government where you live paying you a salary and giving you a company car? No. Okay, and if you extricate yourself from the contracts through affidavits to Washington and different things we show you how to do, you quit the company, okay? You tell them, I'm no longer part of your company. Now, when you go into Walmart, they can't hand you the broom. Or if you get pulled over, okay, the guy in the costume is an employee of a privately held for-profit business. So is the guy in the bathrobe in the courtroom. He's an employee of a privately held for-profit business, period. What authority does he have to tell me to do anything? For instance, he's not God. He's not my daddy. Okay, they outlawed slavery in the 13th Amendment, so I'm not his slave. I'm not his property. The only thing left is if I have a contract with him. That's the only way he could tell me to do anything. And guess what? I have a court of record here, which was recorded on the public land at the Register of Deeds, showing that I'm not contracted with you. So back off, Jack, or I'm going to file a $5 million lawsuit for Title 18 violation, deprivation of rights under color of law. Let's start with that. Let's start with violating your oath of office, which your own government says is $250,000 fine. And let's have a party. Okay?
Yeah. I definitely find this stuff interesting. I was a big fan of Jordan Maxwell and getting into the maritime law and the way the courtroom works and the Saturn worship stuff that's in there, and all corporations are corpse-parations. They're all dead. And the trading of stock. Are you from good stock? Well, we made stock when you were born. Like, I think that stuff is really interesting. There's so many examples. There has to be something to it. All of our names are written in capital letters in any legal framework, and I think that's clearly evidence of some kind of meaning there. Otherwise, you'd have some exceptions to that rule, and there's really not. But I was curious about this layer of things with this 1666 Trust Act, which is a curious year, just like the Luciferae patent being 060606. We know this stuff is coded in. So in 1666,
just imagine that in 1666.
What is the deal with this Trust Act?
Right. So this was when the kings and the nobles were the only ones allowed to hold property. So the nobles would go off to war or some quest for the king, and they would put their land in trust with the king. That was the Siskiyou Trust Act of 1666. And what it stated was if they returned, they could reclaim their land. Okay, well, what the Lucy's have done, the Luciferians, is they have basically presumed that same concept over you when you're born. And what they do is when you're born, there's a live birth certificate, but then a couple days later, they bring in a birth certificate, which has your name in all caps. And they tell the mom, we need you to sign this so we can register your baby with the state. But what's really happening is the mom is signing that as an informant, which means someone that gives away someone. And you are then recognized as chattel through that fraudulent process. And they actually presume the doctrine of parens patriae, which is the state is your parent. So you become chattel, and then they actually use you as surety to borrow $1 million. This is absolutely proven. They borrow $1 million against you as for your future taxes you'll pay and all that stuff. And then they invest that over the course of your life. And you know, at our age, it's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. You have a trust that's in the name of your corporation, your all caps corp, that's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. $500 million is typical. And I'm working.
Man.
Yep. I've talked to people. I'm working with people. I'm in the process of myself of going through the journey to get into the private enough where you go on camera, they call it, and you probate the minor estate. You have to have a competency hearing. They won't turn it over to knuckleheads. You have to know your stuff, trust law and different things like that, and be an honor. You can't have a lot of, damage and dead bodies and all kinds of stuff in your trail. So you have to show competency. And then you can either have access to it where you use a QSIP number to purchase your house and your car, and you can basically have all your expenses paid. But there's another level where you actually get access to it in a lump sum, and you can actually get your parents and your grandparents' trust if you have their death certificates.
Can you believe it, people? A video clip and a peek into how that sweet THC sausage is made. For some people, I'm sure it's nice to put a face to the name, so I started making clips that are a little more YouTube friendly than the full show tends to be. Get the full show on any podcasting platform. I prefer to keep it audio only, so we have a more decentralized distribution for a controversial show, and also so I can edit out the ums and ahs and barking dogs and all the things that happen when a person records in their home environment. And then if you really like the show, you can sign up for THC Plus, and instead of 1 hour interviews, you get the full 2 hour interview for just $8. I think that's a better deal, more of a win-win than asking you to support the show by booking a therapy session or buying generic Viagra. It's getting weird out there, folks. So just go to the highersidechats.com or click the link at the top of any set of show notes, and all your wildest dreams will come true. All right? All right. The higher side.